All right, welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris Fisher. Behind me here, I have my 1964 Triumph TR4 that I'm restoring. Been playing with this battery tray, battery box, bulkhead area for entirely too long now. So let's finish it up today, shall we? Thanks for watching. So when we last left our intrepid hero, we had gotten the battery tray floor done. Pretty much all the pieces, parts in here are at least pretty roughly cut, except for the front panel that's have to go here, and that can go to the very end. So I've been coming through to try to figure out the best way to weld this up. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this vertical piece on, which goes like this. I'm going to put that vertical piece on first. And I think what that'll allow me to do is this corner is a real mess, and it'll have three pieces coming together here, and then have to also accompany and account for the piece that's going to go this big flat front piece. So I'm hoping that if I can get this in, that'll kind of give me an anchor to line everything else up off of. And instead of adjusting this piece, because I think this piece is pretty close to original, I can adjust these pieces where I don't have as good of a template because their templates were pretty eaten up. So we're going to go ahead, prep this area, get this thing just tacked in, minimal number of tacks, so that if I have to cut it back out, I can do that. And I also have decided that I'm going to go ahead and tack that bolt in from the back side and mess with that a little bit. So clean this up and just put a couple weld tacks on the back of that. The heater mounts here, I was informed via email. The gentleman reached out and said that's where the heater mounts up. So I'll be able to make sure that I'm not going to mess that screw up and mess that mounting point up real quick, and then go ahead and tack that in. So what I'm going to do is start here, put a tack in the middle here, and as I go, I think you can see it's not flush with this piece here. As I go, I'm going to, move it around and everything to try to make it as flush on that seam as possible. I think I'm going to stop with that one there. The piece could go just a touch that way more, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. And this is not fitting real great down here, but I'm afraid to lock it in because this piece has got to go in there. You can see I got one tack here. I have several tacks on this piece, so I'm pretty happy with this piece. I had to work this piece a couple times, and unfortunately that resulted in some pretty wide gaps. I'm going to deal with those, but it fits pretty well. Around the back, I'll come out of the car and show you. I got a couple plug welds in there, but that's going to pretty much, I want to get this piece in, and then I'm going to size up for the bottom plate, and then the front plate's going to go in. Oops, sorry, I'm really close there. So the tray and then the back plate's going to go in last. So I'm going to go around, look at the plug welds, make sure I'm happy with those, do a little clamp on there, plug weld this thing in, and then try to get this kind of set up. And then move on to the battery tray. I've got the heater has been going on and off, so I'm keeping the temperature up for the paint. So hopefully I don't regret that, but we'll see what it looks like on the back side here, and then keep moving on. Try to give you a little bit of close up here. This is the back end. You can see I got that clamp snake through the, I think that's where the wiring harness goes through into the engine compartment, so I kind of got lucky there. So that's clamped nice and tight. Gaps are okay. You can see those two plug welds. I'm not going to worry about a plug weld on this one. One, I couldn't really get the plug weld thing in there, and two, I'm going to weld that whole seam together anyway. So I'm not concerned about a plug weld there, but I got two set up there, so we'll go ahead and get those welded in. Alright, so that should work there. One problem that I did run into, and it's kind of hard to see in here, right in here you can see there's that little gap. You can see that little speck of red back there. That's straight through to the passenger compartment. I just didn't cut the angle of that metal piece right. Not incredibly concerned about it. I'm not going to fill it with weld, but I guess I could do seam seal or something like that. I'm not quite sure, or just not do anything about it. But unfortunately that's not real flush there, but it wasn't worth going back and remanufacturing this whole piece and having to deal with it. But you can see the gap problems that I'm going to have here. Zoom out. Kind of big gaps here. down there as it comes in. Probably, again, nothing that a little bit of weld won't take care of, but that's cross that bridge when we come to it. Now I'm going to look at putting the battery tray in. I got to get it painted real quick here, so I got to turn the heat back on and get that cranked up so I can not worry about the paint curing. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that, we'll investigate these gaps a little bit. That's about as close as the final product as we're going to get. I was able to trim up this vertical piece here. You might be able to see that it's kind of wonky. I used the shears to cut the bottom and it sprung the metal on me. So I should have stuck with the grinding wheel, I guess, for that. But whatever, nothing that a weld won't fix. So it's far from perfect right now, but I'll come around and show you the back. But if I lift this up here, kind of play with it a little bit, this piece needs to go back, and this piece kind of gets flexed back and all. There's I think we're in a good spot. So that's what it's going to look like, and I'm happy. I put some OSPO down and everything. I wanted to do some rust remover underneath this paint. I still have got to spray the bulkhead here with rust through primer, or yeah, weld through primer. So I still got a little bit of prep work yet, but that's going to be for the next visit, which for you starts in about a second. Battery tray is ready to weld in as far as I'm concerned. You might notice that I've got this little piece here. I replaced this little corner because it was pretty pitted and pretty nasty. So that little corner right there and this little flange here that goes out and comes up a little bit. So there's a new piece behind that. But the battery tray got a little wonky on me, so it kind of falls as it goes this way. So what I'm going to do is get tacks, a couple tacks here, and then fit it as I go across. I got plug welds to do, but I want the flange to match up with the existing flange, so if I push it this way anymore to get this flush on the transmission tunnel, it pushes the flange too far back. So instead of that, I'll get this welded and attached to the outside here, and then clamp these for the plug welds. Alright, so we'll do a couple tacks here, and then I'll make my way over here, clamp this corner up over here, which is just about off camera, but clamp that so it lifts that up a little bit, and call it good from there. I've also got a little spirit level here. I'm comparing it, essentially the battery tray to the rest of the car, and it's actually pretty level right now. But we're just making some tacks, trying to get one step closer to getting this in. So this is a pretty big step, I guess, to get this portion of it in. Alright, so we got 3 or 4 tacks here, a couple tacks over here. Now this flange in the back, that new piece, still needs to be sized. So I'm going to come around the other side and get the Dremel and kind of trim that flush. And then, like I had mentioned before, this corner over here is a hot mess, essentially. So I've got to kind of work my way around here and flush things with the hammer and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that easily. But pretty level, like I said, compared to the rest of the car. But it does drop to the back a little bit, so as I lift this up, I'm going to get in the camera angle here, but as I lift this back up to make it flush, it comes right in level. And if anything, really, I would like to be a little high, but I'm not too sure that I'm going to be able to do that and keep everything else looking lined up properly. So again, we're going to go around the back, get that thing, get this clamped to this piece here, and then just slowly work it. So you can see this clamp here, I've got this clamped in. I'm pretty happy with this level here. It's pretty flush up against that. Gonna go ahead and weld on the back side here, weld the 2 seams together in the flange, just to kind of keep this metal up. I don't want to, just not ready to plug weld yet. I guess I could, but I'm gonna hold off on that a little bit. So I'm just gonna put a couple tacks in the back here, and then it'll essentially tie these 3 pieces together right where that vice grip is. And then I don't know what I'll do after that. Think about it. All right, so that came in pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to do one spot weld back here because I want to anchor this for the flat piece, and I think I may have to rework the flat piece. I'll show you that here in a sec. And I'm going to do probably 1, 2, 3 spot welds across the front here just to get this anchored up. So I'll clean the paint up from that, and then we'll stop where we're at that point and assess. Back side here in the passenger compartment, here's those plug weld holes that I was telling you about, and the tack that I did right here to help kind of hold that in and hold it up. So now what I'll do is I'll lift up a little bit, clamp this, and then go ahead and do one plug weld. The reason I'm lifting it is just to get that gap between this new piece here and this tray as close as I can. So I'm going to go around and check it real quick, and that's about as good as I'm going to get it. Some light in there. So that plug weld right there is what I'm going to be doing. Get my drill. A little compressed air to blow the shavings out. A little paint still in there. Alright, that should about do that. No choice now. She's in there. Alright, and these other plug welds, I'll get a little bit bigger of a vice grip just to reach in there and get it right in the middle. Take care of those here in a little bit. But now I want to check the vertical fit. And like I said, it went a little wonky on me. I'll try and show you. Alright, so next up is fitting this piece in. A couple things about this. It got all wonky on me. And really, I overstretched it. So it's got pretty good oil canning in it. If you can kind of see how wavy it is there. The other thing is this flange that I made with the flange tool is not quite at about an 18 gauge. It's more at about a 20 gauge thickness. So I'm going to have to notch that a little bit harder. I think what I can do, however, is use the bead roller. Had a pretty good notch in it when I used that really small one, and that made me think of being able to make flanges. So that would be advantageous there. Still needs some sizing on this, but I might just have to make a whole new piece because it's popped so much, but we'll see. Yeah, I tried, but I just couldn't save this. It's I tried some heat and to hammer it, some hot shrinking, and just not working. So anyway, new piece of metal here. Obviously I cut it a little big. This will give me the opportunity to try to make this flange a little taller with the bead roller now that I've kind of got that. So we'll start iterations of getting this sized up. I think the first thing I am going to do is make that bead, just to give me an idea. I got a couple pieces of practice metal. All right, I want these to be a lap joint, so I want to make sure that the bead is deep enough to accept the 18 gauges, and they'll go on top of each other and be relatively flat. So I'll get some scrap metal here, get the bead roller out, we'll do some experimentation. So when I was doing the beads in the battery tray, I was using these, I don't know how deep this is, 1/4 inch it looks like, beads, and that's going to be way too thick. I think I can picture that in my head, what I'm trying to do with that bead roller for those battery tray, and I don't want anything that big, so I'm going to go to a next size smaller, which I believe is 1/8 of an inch, looks like, or so, and put that on there. What we'll have to dial in is how many, how strong the clamp force is. All right, just a metal strip here. I'm just going to run it through several times. Got a regular piece of metal here, and I'll just put them on top of each other until they're relatively flush when it's all said and done. Who knows, maybe this die won't work and I'll have to figure something else out, but we'll see. All right, that's about 3 rolls here. Ooh, that looks like it's a little too deep. Oh no, well, that might be exactly what I want, 3 rolls. We'll try it again. just to verify. All right, yeah, about 3 rolls it is. So you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. So that's cool, that was easy. So now what I'll do is I'll run that piece of metal through, give me a sufficient depth in the flange, I'll mark it up and go measure the other one. Mark that up and just roll it straight through. Then I'll worry about fitting the piece up. All right, there's the flange. Now obviously it's way too tall, but that's all right. And you gotta make sure that you're doing the flange on the proper side, that you're not cutting the wrong. So here I've got traced out from the back side. So I'll start to slowly trim this up now. You see these lines don't line up, but I'm not concerned about that because this line up here wasn't flush. At least I hope not. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and start doing some rough cuts here and sizing this up. What you see there is a properly made back panel, magneted in, not welded in yet. Little, the creases, or the bead roller got a little wonky up here. You can kind of see that, the undulation, but I think once this front piece gets put on, that's gonna hide that a little better. What this is an improperly made piece, and what I did not take into account was I did my bead roll first. And shouldn't have done that because as I trimmed the piece and all that other kind of stuff, I was kind of locked into that bead roll. So when I figured out that the bead roll should have been on the other side of the line instead of the bottom side of the line, it was too late, and I essentially now lost 1/4 of an inch because of the roll. So this whole piece is now, I mean, obviously it's still good metal, but I guess partially a waste. But anyway, no wonkiness. I used the grinder throughout to prevent the weird that the heat didn't bother it, but using that those little pincher cutters, it did. So looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. The next step is to get some fresh epoxy on there, or a weld-through primer. A little cold in here. It's getting a little long in the tooth for the evening. I'm not going to warm it up to get it warm enough to paint because I'm not going to weld it, so that'll be for the next trip, which for you will be in just a second. Another thing I need to build is this piece right here. As I mentioned, I'm not going to weld that up yet, not for a while, so I can get in there and get this cleaned up and get it painted and all that kind of stuff. But if you can see this little half moon shape, there's several of them as they go across, and there's not really any rhyme or reason to the distance, fortunately, except for right here. So there's a half moon cut out there, and then every 3 inches to this guy right here, 3 inches on center. So I'd like to thank Doug, who sent me a picture of that with the ruler snapped up there so I could see that, so I appreciate that. This piece was pretty much all gone in there. I had no reproduction that I can trace. So what I did is took a little piece of manila paper under here and just kind of fished it under this guy. Got it in there somehow. And then just used a Sharpie to trace that out. So now I have a pattern of what that half moon looks like. I'll be able to cut that out, and I'm just gonna get a small strip of metal, measure it 3 inches from here, start fitting it up and getting that sized and everything like that so that that piece can be ready to go with in standby until I'm ready. Got that piece mostly fit up. Not a whole lot to it, just a flat piece of metal. Essentially you're just, tracing it and trimming and cutting and trimming and cutting and sizing it up until it gets in there. The half moons I haven't cut out yet, but I'm going to do so next. Just wanted to show you how this is going to fit up. So because you've got a sandwich of 3 pieces of metal here, you got the big back plate that I'm going to get ready to weld in here in a little bit, and then you have another piece back here, and then this piece kind of goes on top. What I'm going to do is tack it to the top piece first, and then put plug weld holes in this piece, and then try to clamp everything together to kind of cinch it all. It's going to be hard. I'm not sure, I don't have any way to clamp the whole car together really, unless I try to come up with something. I might be able to use some blocks of wood or something like that to try and clamp it all together. We'll see. But real quick, I'll go out and cut out these half moon holes here. I've got this back plate piece painted and essentially ready to go in. I'm going to give the paint a little bit more time to dry, and then try to go in, get that thing in there, start finishing some welding up in here, and get this thing pretty much near completion. Before I get started, real quick on a side note, a production note, I have a wireless microphone going right now. So if the sound sounds different, that's why through the video. Let me know what you guys think real quick. Just if you like this better, you can hear a little bit better. I've been concerned that I'm kind of getting away from the camera a little bit and hard to hear. But anyway, we've got this piece all painted up, ready to go, fit in there roughly. I'm gonna go ahead and start tacking it in. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the sides first to try to attach the 2 walls before I worry about the plug welds. The bottom plug welds I'm gonna get from the inside of the passenger compartment. The top plug welds you can see right here, I've got those ready to go, so I'm gonna get them from the top. Again, I've got some concern for getting that nice and tight there and getting those 2 pieces of metal really pinched together. But for now, the concern is gonna be just slowly working my way up. Probably 4 little tacks per side or something like that so I can get rid of the magnets, and then I'll move on to the plug welds. And then we'll move on to finishing up all the welding in here. All right, so looking how things are gonna line up here. Looks like I kind of want to start at the bottom and work my way up just the way that the metal flexes. These magnets here, I've talked about them, but I haven't really discussed them all that much. They're just little rare earth magnets. I call it niobium. It's not niobium. I don't remember what the element is, niobium or something like that. But very strong. They allow you to put stuff up here a lot better than any really magnets, welding magnets that you can find, as long as you don't need those angles that the welding magnets do for you. But I've really come to lean on them as an extra set of hands, and they hold pretty good. And they're not cheap, but they're not really all that expensive. I'll put a link in the description as normal. But we're gonna go ahead. I'll do a tack down here, move over to the other side, do a bat attack somewhere in the middle, and I've got to worry about keeping everything nice and flush. So I might have to come around from the other end. This could get a little tricky with trying to keep it flush as I work my way up, and not being able to reach everything. But we'll see here. All right, so that works pretty well. Looks like the plug welds down at the bottom are not going to need any help. That's pretty tight up. But then this one up here, because I can push it away, which means I can push it in. So I'm definitely going to need to find something that'll fix that. So let me see if I can come up with a solution there to get these nice and tight, and then we'll get a couple plug welds in from the top, a couple plug welds in from the bottom, and then we'll go around and start stitch welding. Might be able to see there that I've got the big old vice grips coming across. Not my favorite solution, but it'll do the trick, I think, at least for those 2 ones in the middle. So we'll do those plug welds. It might work a little bit better at the bottom. I'll twist it down. As far as going to the outsides, though, I'm not quite sure. I could use sheet metal screws here. I'm just trying to not do that because I don't want to put that many holes in there, but I might not have a choice in the long run here. Much better solution for the bottom, so probably should be able to get most of those plug welds on the bottom the way that is. Maybe just not quite that far one, but I mean, it'll work. I just like it a little bit more clamped. Of course, might not be a perfect lap weld there too, so who knows what I got to deal with. But we'll go ahead and get a couple of the bottom ones, and then step back and look at what we got. Well, all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. Got to finish up the welding, obviously. The top piece is essentially ready to go. So that'll go in there all right. I'll show you that real quick. All right, that'll go something like that. And that's going to be about done for that. Nothing left but the welding. Still got some cleaning up to do, obviously, but I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Solid, relatively square. It's not all wonky and wobbly. A little bit in this corner over here, but not horrible. Obviously, like I had mentioned, I still got that top piece, which is done up there sitting on the cowling, but not ready to go in yet until I can get in there and get some paint and all sorts of stuff in there. But otherwise, that's going to do it for this job for now, and do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.